Commander Marcus Hayes had been on Frontier Station Theta 7 for exactly 42 days, and in that time he'd learned three crucial things. Synthetic gravity never quite felt right. The station's coffee was an insult to caffeine everywhere, and staring at your Valorian partner was apparently very noticeable. The station hung in deep space, a joint venture between humanity and half a dozen other species, all pretending they trusted each other while secretly running intelligence reports. Marcus's assignment was tactical coordination and navigation, boring work made bearable by one significant complication. Surin. She was Valorian, which meant she looked humanoid enough that the human brain processed her as familiar, but different enough that every interaction was a reminder that evolution had taken wildly different paths. The ears were obvious, long, elegantly tapered, capable of independent movement that served both practical and expressive purposes, but it was the patterns that got him. Bioluminescent designs flowed beneath Valorian skin, creating living light shows that shifted with thought and emotion. Surin's patterns were particularly striking: geometric precision when she was analyzing data, flowing waves when she was focused, sharp angles during tactical discussions. Marcus had spent 6 weeks trying not to be obvious about watching those patterns. He was failing spectacularly. It happened again during morning briefing. They were reviewing supply chain logistics, thrilling stuff that normally would have had Marcus fighting to stay awake. But Surin was presenting the analysis, and her patterns shifted through complex mathematical visualizations as she spoke, each geometric formation perfectly synchronized with her words. Marcus found himself mesmerized by the efficiency of it, the way her movements were economical but graceful, the way her patterns provided a visual supplement to her already precise verbal communication, the way she tilted her head slightly when considering variables, ears swiveling to track ambient sounds even while she maintained focus on the holographic display. He was so absorbed in observation that he didn't notice she'd stopped talking, didn't notice the briefing room had gone silent, didn't notice she'd turned to look directly at him until her voice cut through his thoughts like a laser. "Commander Hayes, why do you keep looking at me, human?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. The other personnel in the briefing room, 2 humans, 1 Crixian and a Velosian engineer, all turned to stare. Marcus felt his face heating, which he knew was a dead giveaway in human body language. He could lie, could claim he'd been reviewing her tactical analysis, could deflect with humor or professional distance, but Surin's eyes, large, luminous, and utterly unreadable by human standards, were fixed on him with the kind of focus that suggested lies wouldn't work. "Because you look amazing," Marcus said, and immediately wanted to climb into an airlock. The silence that followed was so complete Marcus could hear the station's environmental systems humming. Surin's patterns, which had been their usual professional neutral blue-white, stopped moving entirely. Just froze, like a computer experiencing a fatal error. Her ears pulled back slightly. A Valorian expression Marcus had learned indicated surprise or confusion. Several seconds passed. Then her patterns restarted, but chaotically, pulsing through colors and formations Marcus had never seen before. Red mixed with gold, geometric shapes dissolved into organic swirls, the whole display distinctly. "Un-Valorian, that is," Surin began, then stopped, started again. "That statement lacks logical foundation. Visual appeal is subjective assessment. Please clarify your meaning." Marcus was now committed to the disaster. "Might as well explain. Your patterns," he said, aware that everyone was still listening but unable to stop now. "The way they coordinate with your movements and thoughts. Humans don't have that. We're clumsy and unpredictable. You're like watching a symphony and a mathematical proof happening simultaneously in the same space." Surin processed this, her head tilting in that characteristic way. Her patterns had settled into something slower, more deliberate, deep purple with traces of white. Marcus had no idea what that meant. You find the Valorian biological communication system aesthetically pleasing. I find you aesthetically pleasing, specifically you, the way you move, the precision, the patterns. Marcus realized he was making it worse but couldn't seem to stop. It's fascinating. I apologize if my observation has been inappropriate. The Crixian officer made a sound that might have been their species' version of a laugh. One of the human officers was trying very hard not to smile. The Velosian engineer's translator rendered their comment as roughly. Interspecies workplace dynamics remain endlessly entertaining. Surin's focus never left Marcus. Inappropriate suggests violation of social contract. Has my existence caused you discomfort, Commander? No, the opposite. I mean, Marcus took a breath, forcing his brain back into coherent function. You haven't done anything wrong. I have difficulty not watching when you work because I find your capabilities remarkable. That's a me problem, not a you problem. Surin's patterns shifted again, this time to something that looked almost like curiosity. Flowing greens and soft blues. You experience positive emotional response to observation of my physical form and behavioral patterns. Yes, this is unexpected. Surin turned to address the room, briefing dismissed. Commander Hayes remain. The other personnel filed out with varying degrees of amusement and sympathy. Marcus stayed seated, wondering if he just ended his career, or at least made the next 5 months of this assignment unbearably awkward. Once they were alone, Surin moved closer, her pattern still in that curious green-blue configuration. She studied Marcus with an intensity that made him acutely aware of every involuntary human response: elevated heart rate, slight sweating, the urge to fidget. I have been aboard this station for 42 standard days, Surin said. In that time, I have documented 17 instances of you directing visual attention toward me when professional necessity did not require it. I initially theorized you were conducting hostile surveillance. Then I theorized cultural misunderstanding. I did not consider. She paused. I did not consider aesthetic appreciation. Marcus felt marginally less mortified. You were tracking my attention. Valorians are trained in observational analysis. Of course I noticed. Her ears swiveled forward. Marcus had learned that meant focused attention. Human emotional responses are illogical, but data suggests they drive significant human achievements. Art, music, poetry, interpersonal bonds. Valorians do not understand this fully. We value efficiency, logic, measurable outcomes. We value those things too. We're just also kind of messy about it. Something that might have been amusement flickered through Surin's patterns, quicksilver traces. Messy, yes. This is accurate description of human methodology. She moved to the window overlooking the void, the nearby nebula painting space in purples and teals. Commander Hayes, I request clarification. When you state I look amazing, what specific parameters inform this assessment? Marcus joined her at the window, maintaining respectful distance. It's not just one thing, it's the whole. You, the way your patterns reflect your thought process. The precision of your movements. The fact that you process multiple data streams simultaneously and your body shows it in real time. Humans can't do that. We're internal and messy, like I said. You're external and elegant. Surin was silent for a long moment, her patterns cycling through complex sequences. Finally, she spoke, voice quieter than before. Valorians view physical form as communication tool and functional vessel. We do not conceptualize ourselves as aesthetic objects. The patterns are information display, not decoration. To be told I am amazing for attributes I consider merely standard functioning is. She paused. Disorienting. Good disorienting or bad disorienting? Unknown. Surin turned to face him fully. Commander, I require assistance understanding human emotional framework. You have stated appreciation for my appearance and function. Is this romantic interest, sexual attraction, simple aesthetic enjoyment? These categories are not clearly delineated in human culture. Marcus appreciated the directness even as he struggled to answer. Honestly, I don't know yet. It started as aesthetic appreciation. But we've been working together for weeks now, and I've started to appreciate more than just how you look. The way you think, your precision and competence, your patience when explaining Valorian protocols. So maybe it's becoming something more than just, you look amazing. Maybe it's becoming, I think you're amazing. Surin's patterns went still again, but differently this time, not frozen with error but deliberately paused, like she was taking a moment to process something significant. I see, she said finally. Her patterns resumed with soft gold tones Marcus had never seen before. Commander Hayes, I propose experimental protocol. What kind of protocol? You will teach me to understand human emotional responses. In exchange, I will teach you Valorian pattern language beyond basic observational interpretation. We will increase mutual comprehension. This serves efficiency of our professional partnership. Marcus knew a rationalization when he heard one, but he appreciated that she was meeting him halfway. That sounds actually really interesting. Good. Surin's patterns shifted to something warmer, more flowing. First lesson. Explain why my appearance generated positive emotional response strong enough to distract you from routine logistics briefing. Because watching you think is like watching art and science have a baby. Surin's ears did a little flutter that Marcus was learning meant suppressed amusement. That metaphor is biologically impossible and logically questionable. Welcome to human communication. We specialize in impossible and questionable. For the first time since he'd met her, Surin's patterns included traces of something that looked almost like laughter, quick, bright flashes of silver light. And Marcus realized that maybe, just maybe, he hadn't destroyed his assignment after all. The observation deck became their evening meeting place. Not officially. Officially, they were conducting cross-cultural efficiency studies, but Marcus suspected everyone on the station knew what was actually happening. Surin had created a schedule with typical Valorian precision, 45 minutes daily, alternating between human emotional education and Valorian pattern interpretation. They'd been at it for 2 weeks, and Marcus was learning that Valorians were simultaneously less alien and more alien than he'd assumed. Tonight's lesson was apparently about human music. Explain, Surin said, gesturing at the audio player Marcus had brought. How organized sound patterns generate emotional response. That's like asking me to explain how breathing works. I just do it. Music makes me feel things. But what is the mechanism? Surin's patterns showed intense focus, tight geometric shapes in bright white. Sound is merely vibration traveling through medium. How does vibration become emotion? Marcus considered this. Pattern recognition, maybe. Humans evolved to recognize patterns. Music exploits that. Certain chord progressions signal specific emotional contexts. Minor keys sound sad to us. Major keys sound happy. It's partly biological, partly cultural conditioning. Demonstrate. Marcus pulled up something simple, an acoustic guitar piece, gentle and melancholic. As it played, he watched Surin. Her patterns began doing something remarkable. They started synchronizing with the music. Not perfectly, but enough that Marcus could see her biological systems responding to the sound waves. "What are you feeling?" he asked quietly. "I am uncertain." Valorians do not process audio input through emotional filters. But her patterns were doing things he'd never seen. Soft, undulating waves in deep blue with traces of purple. However, my patterns are responding to rhythmic structure and tonal variations. It is not unpleasant. Not unpleasant is pretty much how everyone describes their first experience with this particular genre, Marcus said with a slight smile. It's folk music, supposed to sound like longing and home and things you've lost. Can sound mean multiple things simultaneously. Music can mean anything and everything. That's why it works. Surin's ears swiveled in that way that meant she was processing something significant. Commander Hayes. Marcus, we've been doing this for 2 weeks. You can use my first name. Her patterns flickered with that silver trace of amusement again. Marcus, may I ask a personal question? Sure. When you observe me and experience positive emotion, what does it feel like? In your body, I mean. Valorians experience all emotion as pattern changes. What is human physiological response? Marcus thought about how to explain. Elevated heart rate, sometimes my breathing changes. My brain releases chemicals, endorphins, dopamine that make me feel good, warm. Like I want to smile, even when there's no reason. You experience positive chemical response to my presence. Yeah, that is, Surin paused. That is not unpleasant to know. They sat in comfortable silence while the music played out. Through the observation window, the nebula swirled in its slow cosmic dance, and Marcus realized he'd stopped seeing it as a backdrop. Now it was just part of where they were together. My turn to ask a personal question. Marcus ventured, acceptable. Those gold patterns you showed when I said you looked amazing. I've never seen you display those colors before or since. What do they mean? Surin's current patterns, calm blues and greens, stuttered slightly. That is, complicated. Complicated how? Valorian color language has many layers. Gold indicates. She paused again, and Marcus noticed her ears had pulled back slightly. Gold is surprise combined with pleasant disorientation. It is the pattern of encountering something that should not work according to known parameters, but works nonetheless. We do not display it often. It suggests loss of control. And you displayed it when I complimented you. Yes. Is that bad? I do not know yet. Surin turned to look at him directly. Valorians are taught from early development to maintain pattern discipline. Our colors and formations should reflect logic and function. Gold is neither of those things. It is pure response without rational foundation. Marcus processed this. So you're saying I made you feel something you weren't supposed to feel. You made me feel something I did not expect to feel. There is difference. Her patterns shifted toward softer purples. I have been thinking about this significantly. Valorian emotional suppression is not absence of emotion, it is control. Management. We feel, but we do not allow feeling to override logic. And what I said overrode your logic. Briefly, yes. Surin's patterns went to that deep purple that Marcus had learned meant serious contemplation. No one has ever told me I am amazing for simply being myself. Valorians value competence and efficiency. You meet standards or you do not. Personal appreciation for aesthetic qualities of individual is not our framework. That sounds lonely. The word seemed to resonate with her. Her patterns flickered uncertainly. Lonely. This term implies desire for connection that is unfulfilled. Valorians form professional associations and familial units. We are not isolated. But are you connected? Surin was quiet for a long moment. The music had ended, leaving just the ambient hum of the station and the infinite silence of space beyond the hall. No, she said finally. We are not in the way you mean. Her patterns had gone dark, not black but muted like lights dimming. We exist in proximity but maintain separation, efficiency over intimacy, function over feeling. Does it bother you? I did not know it could bother me until I experienced alternative. She looked at him and her patterns brightened slightly. You see me, Marcus Hayes, not Valorian officer, not tactical specialist, me, Surin, individual. That is the gold pattern. That is what I felt. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, that warm chemical response he'd just described. I'm glad I could give you that feeling, even if it confused your logical systems. Confusion is merely new data awaiting classification. Her patterns warmed to gentle golds and pinks. Perhaps I should allow more confusion in my life. They were interrupted by the comm system. Commander Hayes to tactical. Commander Hayes to tactical. Marcus sighed, duty calls. As it always does. Surin stood, her movements carrying that characteristic grace. Tomorrow evening, same time. I'll be here. As Marcus headed to the tactical center, he found himself analyzing his own emotional state. This thing developing between him and Surin, it was more than appreciation for alien biology now. It was genuine connection. The kind that crossed species barriers and cultural frameworks. The kind that could complicate everything. In tactical, he found a situation developing, a distress signal from a civilian transport, possible pirate activity in the sector. Standard crisis management, nothing he couldn't handle. But as he coordinated response protocols, part of his mind kept returning to the observation deck. To Surin, learning to understand emotion through music. To gold patterns that meant pleasant disorientation. To the fact that he might be falling for someone whose entire evolutionary history had trained her not to fall back. Later that night, back in his quarters, Marcus found a message on his personal console. Text only from Surin. I researched human music tradition after you left. Found concept of love songs. These are audio expressions of interpersonal bond. Curious why species capable of direct verbal communication requires artistic encoding. Perhaps you will explain tomorrow. Surin. Marcus smiled at the screen, then typed back. Love songs exist because some feelings are too big for regular words. We need music to carry the weight. See you tomorrow. He hit send before he could overthink it. 3 floors away in her own quarters, Surin read the response. Her patterns cycled through colors no other Valorian was present to see, golds and pinks and soft purples that would have shocked her instructors back home. She was changing. She knew it. The human was changing her. And for the first time in her carefully controlled existence, Surin found herself not wanting to stop it. The alarm cut through the station at 400 local time, sharp, insistent, unmistakable. Marcus jerked awake with the instant adrenaline response of someone who'd served in combat zones. He was dressed and moving toward the command center before his brain fully engaged. Asteroid field. Uncharted. Moving fast. Collision course with the station. By the time he reached tactical, half the senior staff was already there, including Surin. Her patterns were sharp red geometric shapes, danger alert, maximum focus. Their eyes met across the room, and Marcus saw something flicker through her patterns, concern. Relief that he was here. No time to analyze it. Commander Hayes, navigation needs collision avoidance protocols now, barked Station Commander Zhang, a steel-haired woman who'd been running deep space posts longer than Marcus had been alive. On it, Marcus dove into the sensor data, his fingers moving across holographic controls with practiced speed. The asteroid field was worse than the initial scan suggested. Dozens of objects, sizes ranging from car-sized to small moon-sized, all moving in a chaotic tumble that made prediction nearly impossible. Surin, I need probability matrices for avoidance vectors, he called out. She was already moving, sliding into the station beside him with that characteristic fluid grace. Calculating. Collision probability with current trajectory. 87% within next 6 hours. We need to move the station. Small adjustments to maintain stable orbit while. Station thrusters insufficient for required delta V. Surin interrupted, her patterns flickering through rapid calculations. We must alter asteroid trajectories instead. Marcus pulled up weapon systems, tractor beams. We'll destabilize smaller objects. Recommend precision plasma charges to alter vector of largest 3 asteroids. Their gravitational influence will cascade through field. It was elegant, it was risky, it was probably their only option. Zhang, permission to execute precision plasma protocol, Marcus asked. The commander studied the projections for exactly 2 seconds. Do it. Hayes, you have tactical. Surin maintained the next 4 hours were controlled chaos. Marcus had to calculate firing solutions that would nudge massive space rocks into new trajectories without shattering them into more dangerous fragments. Surin ran constant simulations, feeding him real-time probability updates as each asteroid shifted. They fell into a rhythm, Wordless communication built on weeks of working together. Marcus would line up a shot. Surin's patterns would shift to indicate probability assessment. If they stayed blue-green, he fired. If they flashed yellow warning, he recalculated. It worked. The first asteroid's trajectory shifted. Then the second. The third required 3 separate charges, each more precise than the last, but finally it too moved into a safer vector. The field dispersed around them like water parting around a stone. By the time Commander Zhang called all clear, Marcus had been on his feet for 5 hours straight. His hands were shaking slightly from adrenaline crash, and his mind felt like it had been running marathon sprints. "Excellent work, both of you," Zhang said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Hey, Surin, you just saved 300 lives. Take the rest of the day off. That's an order." Marcus nodded numbly. Beside him, Surin's patterns had gone from alert red to exhausted gray. He'd learned that muted colors meant depleted energy reserves. They walked to the observation deck in silence. It had become their space, and neither suggested going anywhere else. Once there, Marcus collapsed into a chair that wasn't quite comfortable but was better than standing. Surin sat with more grace, but he could see the fatigue in the way her patterns barely shifted. "We almost died," Marcus said after a long silence. "Probability was significant, yes. Does that bother you, the almost dying part?" Surin was quiet, her patterns cycling slowly through contemplative purples. Valorians are trained to accept mortality as inevitable termination of biological function. Fear of death is illogical. It changes nothing about death's inevitability. "That's not an answer to my question." "No." She looked at him and her patterns shifted to something more vulnerable, soft blues with threads of dark purple. "I was afraid, not of death itself, but of not having more time." "More time for what?" "For this." She gestured between them. "For whatever is developing between us. I have been alive for 43 standard years. I have been competent and efficient and logical. I have never been." She paused, searching for words. "I have never been seen the way you see me. And today, when death was probable, I realized I would regret not exploring what that means." Marcus felt his chest tighten with something that wasn't fear or adrenaline. "Surin, let me finish." Her patterns flashed with determination. "Valorians do not form romantic attachments in the way humans understand them. We have reproduction protocols and professional partnerships. But we do not have what you call falling in love. We are taught this is human irrationality, chemical accident, evolutionary error. But I researched your love songs. I analyzed human poetry and romantic literature. I ran psychological assessments on documented human pair bonding." Her patterns were shifting rapidly now, colors Marcus had never seen. "And I realized that what I feel when you observe me, when you see me as amazing, it matches human descriptions of initial romantic interest." Marcus's brain, still tired from crisis management, struggled to process this. "You're saying you might be falling in love with me, but you just said Valorians don't do that." "Valorians don't. But perhaps I am not being properly Valorian anymore." Her patterns went gold, that surprise and pleasant disorientation color. "You are changing me, Marcus Hayes, making me feel things my entire species considers illogical. And I'm not trying to stop it." Marcus stood, moved closer, knelt in front of her chair so they were at eye level. "Surin, I need you to understand something. What I feel for you, it's not just aesthetic appreciation anymore. It's not just admiring your patterns or your precision. It's you, the way you think. The way you're trying so hard to understand emotions your species spent millennia suppressing. Your courage in letting yourself be confused and uncertain, I think." He took a breath. "I think I'm falling in love with you too." Surin's patterns exploded into colors, gold and pink and purple and silver, all swirling together in a display that was completely uncontrolled and absolutely beautiful. "This is terrifying," she whispered. "Yeah, love usually is. Valorians will not understand. My family, my professional associations, They will view this as failure of discipline, corruption by human emotional instability. And is that what you think? No. Her hand reached out, the first time she'd initiated physical contact, and touched his face. Her fingers were warm, and he could feel the slight pulse of bioluminescent energy beneath her skin. I think this is growth, evolution, becoming something new. Marcus covered her hand with his own. We don't have to figure everything out tonight. We just survived a near-death experience. We're allowed to be a little irrational. A little irrational, Surin repeated, and her patterns flickered with that silver humor. Very human philosophy. You're spending too much time with me. It's rubbing off. Yes, her patterns went soft pink. It is. They sat like that for a long time. Human and Valorian, touching across species barriers, building something that neither of their evolutionary paths had prepared them for. Outside the window, the nebula continued its cosmic dance, indifferent to the small moment happening in its shadow. But Marcus thought maybe that was okay. The universe didn't have to care about their connection. They cared about it enough for both. The message arrived 3 weeks later, transmitted through official Valorian channels with all the warmth of a legal document. Surin Operative 47, your behavioral patterns have been flagged for review. Report to Homeworld within 30 standard days for assessment and potential reassignment. Noncompliance will result in revocation of citizenship status. Marcus found her in their observation deck. It was definitely theirs now. Everyone on the station knew to give them that space in the evenings, staring at the message hologram with patterns so dark they were almost black. They're calling me home, she said without turning around. They know. How could they know? Valorians monitor all operatives in foreign assignments. Pattern analysis, communication surveillance, behavioral tracking. They've been watching me deviate from standard parameters. Her voice was flat, controlled, but her patterns betrayed her distress. I am being classified as compromised. Marcus felt anger surge through him, hot, human, messy. That's insane. You're not compromised, you're just... He struggled for words. You're just learning to be more than what they programmed you to be. To them, that is the same thing. Surin finally turned to face him. Marcus, if I do not comply, I lose everything. My citizenship, my family connections, my professional credentials. I become exile. And if you do comply, they will recondition me, restore pattern discipline, remove emotional aberrations. Her patterns flickered with something that looked like fear. They will remove you from my life and my understanding. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. That's brainwashing. That is cultural maintenance, Surin corrected, but her tone suggested she didn't believe it. Valorians have maintained emotional discipline for 3,000 years. It is foundation of our civilization. They view my changes as disease requiring cure. What do you view it as? Surin's patterns cycled through rapid changes, distress, confusion, determination. As becoming more myself. As finding parts of existence I did not know were possible. As, she paused, as loving you and not wanting to forget what that feels like. Marcus moved to her, taking her hands in his. Then don't go. Request asylum with the human government. You're a valuable operative. They'd accept you. And abandon everyone I've ever known, every connection from my previous existence. Her patterns showed the conflict tearing through her. Marcus, this is not simple choice. I would become traitor to my entire species. Or pioneer. First Valorian to choose emotion over conditioning. First to prove that your people could evolve beyond suppression. You make it sound noble. It feels like betrayal. They stood in silence, hands clasped, while Marcus's mind raced through options. There had to be a solution that didn't require Surin to choose between her people and her growth. What if we fought back? He said suddenly, what? Your people say you're compromised. What if we prove you're enhanced? Gather data showing that emotional integration makes you better at your job, not worse. Show them quantifiable improvements in your tactical assessments, your creative problem-solving, Your ability to work with other species. Surin's patterns shifted to thoughtful purple. You suggest we present emotion as efficiency upgrade. I suggest we speak their language. They value logic and measurable outcomes. We give them metrics that prove what you've gained, not what you've lost. That is, Surin processed this. That is actually tactically sound. But Marcus, even if data supports the hypothesis, 3,000 years of cultural momentum does not shift easily. No, but maybe we can shift it a little, start a crack in the wall. Marcus squeezed her hands. Surin, I'm not letting you go without a fight. And I don't mean a romantic gesture movie fight. I mean a actually prepare a logical argument with supporting data fight. Despite everything, her patterns flickered silver. You would research and compile evidence for me. I'd do considerably more than that for you. This is what humans call love. Willingness to engage in tedious data analysis for another's benefit. Among other things, yeah. Surin's patterns warmed to soft gold. Then perhaps I am learning to love in human way. They spent the next 2 weeks building their case. Marcus pulled station records showing Surin's performance improvements over the past months, faster tactical assessments, more creative solutions, better interspecies communication. He documented the asteroid crisis, showing how their synchronized work had saved lives. Surin contributed Valorian medical scans showing her pattern changes, analyzed through both traditional Valorian frameworks and human neuroscience. She demonstrated that her emotional development hadn't compromised her logical capabilities. It had enhanced them by providing additional processing frameworks. They compiled testimonials from station personnel. Commander Zhang gave a particularly strong statement. Surin's partnership with Commander Hayes represents the best of interspecies cooperation. Her ability to integrate human emotional context with Valorian logical precision makes her the most effective tactical officer I've worked with in 20 years. When they finished, they had a comprehensive argument that emotional integration represented evolution, not corruption. It might not work, Surin warned as they prepared the transmission. It might, Marcus countered. And even if it doesn't convince the whole Valorian government, it might convince some of them. Start a conversation. That's how change begins. They sent the document through official channels, addressed to the Valorian Assessment Council. The response came faster than expected. Request for virtual hearing granted. You will present your case to Assessment Council in 3 standard days. Be prepared for intensive questioning. Note, this hearing will be public record. All Valorian citizens will have access to testimony. Marcus saw it as an opportunity. Surin saw it as potential disaster. If we fail, she said, my arguments become public proof of compromise. Other Valorians will view me as cautionary example. And if we succeed, you become proof that emotional evolution is possible, that Valorians can grow beyond suppression. You are optimistic to a degree Valorians consider delusional. I prefer hopefully realistic. The hearing was conducted via holographic projection. 12 council members manifested in the station's conference room, their patterns deliberately neutral, their expressions unreadable. The lead counselor, Jex Prime 12, opened the proceedings. Surin Operative 47, you stand accused of emotional corruption leading to behavioral compromise. You have requested opportunity to present alternative framework. You may proceed. What followed was 3 hours of intense questioning. Surin presented their data. Marcus provided human perspective on emotional logical integration. They fielded challenges about objectivity, about whether Surin's judgment could be trusted, about whether this was truly evolution or just rationalization of cultural betrayal. Through it all, Surin's patterns remained remarkably stable. She was nervous, Marcus could tell from the slight color fluctuations, but she held her discipline. Until Counselor Thek Secondary 8 asked the question that cut through all the data. Surin Operative 47, do you love this human? The chamber went silent. Surin's pattern stuttered, cycling through rapid changes before she forced them to stability. Yes, she said simply, I do. Loving a human represents ultimate emotional compromise. You have abandoned Valorian principles. No, Surin's voice strengthened. I have expanded them. Valorians value truth and efficiency. The truth is that emotion and logic are not opposites. They are complementary processing systems. The efficiency I've gained through emotional integration is documented. You've seen the data. She stood, her full height impressive in the holographic space. You say I've abandoned Valorian principles. I say I've discovered that Valorians have potential you've been suppressing for 3,000 years. We can be logical and feel. We can be efficient and connected. We can be Valorian and also more. The patterns of several council members flickered, surprise, uncertainty. And if we reject your framework, HFY-12 asked, if we order your reconditioning. Surin looked at Marcus, then back at the council. Then I request asylum with the human government, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that what I've discovered here matters more than what I left behind. More flickering patterns. The council members conferred in rapid Valorian, too fast and technical for Marcus's translator to fully render. Finally, HFY-12 spoke. This council cannot reach consensus. Your case reveals divisions in Valorian philosophy we did not know existed. Therefore, we propose compromise. You will remain with the human station for extended observation period, 1 full year. During this time, you will document your emotional development and its effects on your capabilities. At year's end, we will reconvene. If data supports your hypothesis, we will consider revising reconditioning protocols. If not, you will submit to cultural realignment. It wasn't victory, but it wasn't defeat. Acceptable, Surin said. After the council disconnected, Marcus pulled her into an embrace, something she'd learned to tolerate, even appreciate over their weeks together. 1 year, he said. We've got 1 year to prove that love and logic aren't enemies. We have 1 year to change 3,000 years of cultural programming, Surin corrected. But her patterns were warm gold and soft pink. Your optimism is perhaps not entirely delusional. I'll take it. That night they stood in their observation deck, watching the nebula paint space with impossible colors. Surin's hand found Marcus's, their fingers interlacing in a gesture that still felt new but increasingly natural. Marcus Hayes, she said quietly, I do not know if we will succeed. I do not know if my people will ever accept what I have become, but I know that I am grateful for what you showed me.